Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here on the show, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Cassie Dewhurst on the show. She is IFBB Pro, coming to us all the way from Wisconsin. Boo, I know, right, everyone? But yeah, she's got it. I mean, you got to be born somewhere. And she has an amazing dog, too, that we might see in the background. His name is Charlie. But again, Cassie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Yeah, so I actually worked in public accounting for a few years, and you're working like 70, 80-hour weeks, so I didn't really have time to eat healthy or work out at all. And I noticed towards the end of it, I was kind of pretty out of shape and put on a lot of weight. So I'm kind of like, I've had enough of this, like I can't do this anymore. So I ended up hiring a personal trainer because I was at the gym, but I didn't really know how to lift correctly, or like I didn't even know what macros were or how to eat healthy. So I kind of learned everything from him, and he kind of like catapulted me into the whole fitness industry, and he had done a lot of fitness stuff. So I think I trained for about a year or two and built that muscle first and like the basics. And then I kind of started to figure out, okay, maybe I want to take this a little bit further and actually compete with it.
I always like to sort of make the comparison where if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how they got into the shape that they're in, whether it comes to their nutrition, their diet, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. I mean, there's literally 1,000 factors. So when it came down to you personally, how hard was it for you to sort of figure out what works specifically for your body, knowing that everyone's body is different? And even if you were to ask advice from someone, what works for them is not necessarily going to work for you.
So I think when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing, so I just went off of what my trainer told me to do. And then once I kind of started like tracking what I'm eating, and you're tracking your water and your workouts, if you mess around with one factor, you can kind of see what works better for you and how your body reacts personally. And that's also why I don't give out my macros or my workouts, because no one's going to react the same exact way. Like someone's body may be super sensitive to carbs or fats or like cycling carbs, but everything's going to be different for everyone.
Absolutely. And was there ever a certain time, I mean, is there a specific moment that you decided that you wanted to compete, or was it just an accumulation of moments? Like we've had so many stories where it's like either people are in the gym and then some person comes up to them and says like, wow, you look amazing, you should really compete. And then that sort of triggers, you know, a reaction. You would be surprised at how many times we've heard that. But did that ever happen to you? And how long into your training, your transformation did it take before you finally decided to make that step?
So when I first like signed up with my trainer, he told me right away, he's like, you should compete someday. Like you would do really well. Like you just have the body type for it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like you don't know what you're talking about. Like I'm super shy and like reserved, and I would never have thought about getting up on a stage. So I just kind of like brushed him off. And then I think I was like a year and a half into training. I'm like, okay, like maybe I'll give this a try. Like we'll just see how it goes. And then I ended up training with him for my first show.
Wow, that's awesome. So I love to hear first prep stories, because a lot of people don't realize what that is like. I mean, they don't realize just the hard work and dedication that it takes just to get into that mindset and to get into that look. But I always say, you know, going into just losing the weight, just when you're starting your fitness journey, that's hard enough in and of itself, the nutritional change. But going into prep, that is really notching it up a whole different level. What was that experience like for you?
I think it was kind of a shock to me. Like I was eating healthy and kind of doing the macros. Then all of a sudden you jump like full on into it, and you have to be extremely strict, realizing like you have to do an insane amount of cardio every day, and like you're tired, you're hungry all the time. So the further along you get into it, the harder it gets. And I think you don't realize how much time and effort and even like emotions play with your prep and how hard it actually is.
Mm-hmm. What was your experience like with prep brain? And for those people out there, prep brain is kind of what happens when you get closer to the show, and your mind can sometimes play some tricks on you because it can be so depleted. And we've had people, you know, like they forget their car keys or they forget other things. I mean, we've had so many funny stories. Do you have any interesting stories about what happened, or some of the maybe some mental errors that you made? Especially being an accountant, and I can figure being an accountant, that's got to be really tricky being on prep brain.
Yeah. Work definitely gets harder. Like I have to make a lot more notes and like lists of things that I have to get done. But like I feel like I'm forgetful to begin with, but I'll be like in one room and have no idea, or like I'll be looking for the remote in the refrigerator, like just something absolutely absurd. you're tired, your brain's foggy all the time. So like you just stay and do really stupid things.
Yeah, I had a prep brain moment myself, even though I wasn't on prep. I like to call it a prep brain moment because a couple nights ago I cheated. I had a cheat meal and I had Burger King. So when I got home, I accidentally poured milk on the hamburger instead of ketchup because I got the wrong thing from the fridge. So then I was like, oh yeah, I'm talking to all these people about prep brain, so maybe this is my one prep brain moment. So yeah, I learned the hard. Yeah, absolutely. So
at least kind of blame it on that. You're like, oh, it's just my prep brain.
Oh, it's just my prep brain, even though I'm not doing it. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'll always have that as an excuse, you know, even if I'm at my job, and then they're like, Ryan, why didn't you fill this thing? Oh, prep brain, Todd. Yeah, just forget it. Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see myself, I'm a very pale individual myself. What was that experience like for you putting that tan on for the first time? Because we have so many interesting stories where people are like, yeah, I saw muscles I never even knew I had. Everything really seems to pop out. What was that experience like for you the first time?
So we're from the Midwest, so we know that most of us are pretty pale.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I got my first tan, it was such a shock looking in the mirror. Like, I looked like a different human being. Like, I didn't even recognize myself. And then when you have, like, the makeup on, too, like, you have no idea who you are. And then actually, a funny story about my first tan ever. So I had a bad reaction to it, and I turned so green. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked in the mirror, and I was green everywhere, and I was absolutely mortified. So you
literally hulked out.
Yes, I was. It was terrifying.
So were you able to just put another coat on and then make it better, or what happened?
We kind of tried to cover it up, but it still had like kind of a green tint on stage, so I never used that product again.
hey, I mean, that's a way the judges definitely recognize you, though. Then I can say.
Yeah, I stood out.
You know, yeah, you definitely stood, which is a huge thing to do when you're doing these competitions. But I always like to say, because I have so many bands on the show and health and fitness guests, what is that feeling like for you personally when you get to step on stage and you'll show off all of that hard work that you've trained months on months for? What is that feeling like?
So as I kind of like mentioned before, I'm very shy and reserved type of person. So I think for me, it's kind of like this alter ego that comes out. Like maybe you're inside, like confident, sexy self. And you get up there, and it's kind of like my brain just switches into that mode, and it's just like this ultimate, I don't know what the word, like maybe like a freedom. Like you just feel absolutely free in that moment. Like you're so in the moment that you forget about everything else, like you've worked the past 16, 20 weeks for, and you finally get to be up there, and like you don't even think about the crowd or the judges or anything. Like you're just doing your thing that you prepared for.
Yeah, I mean, I had that feeling sort of when I was playing baseball, because me being a pitcher, I mean, it was just me, the batter, and the catcher. And it's just one of those things where I tell everyone, if you can ever get into, you don't even have to compete, you don't have to be in a band, but if you can ever just get that feeling that these people get when they perform, it's one of the best feelings you could ever get. And a lot of people just describe it as like, a lot of the bands on here, they're like, it's like a drug unlike any other, and trust me, a lot of those guys would know when it comes to that, what that feeling is like. So, and it's just, I always just like to, a lot of people also, I mean, it's just, they just feel so alive, and I always just tell people, if just experience that just once in your life, just because that is such a great feeling, and I highly recommend it. But at what point did you gain your pro card? How many shows in did it take you for that?
It was my second show.
Wow.
I did one local show, and I won the overall there. I went to junior nationals and won my height class there, so I won my pro card.
Well, that was easy.
I didn't expect it to happen that fast, but
I was gonna say, I was like, usually we have people who are like, yeah, it took me a couple of years, but yeah, with you, I mean, it was just you were just built for it, I guess. I mean, so what is your go-to post-show meal? What is probably the main food that you like to have after? So
for food, I love like a really big burger and sweet potato fries. That's my go-to for food. But I'm a huge Reese's fan. Ooh. Like any sort of Reese's possible. I know for my last show, someone got me a big bag of like every type of Reese's you could think of. And that's just ultimate heaven to me.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Five Guys is probably my favorite burger place. I mean, I go there all the time. That's another place where I've had so many guests. But now also for anyone out there who doesn't know, I mean, she is probably our third or fourth guest from Wisconsin that we've had on. But being from Wisconsin, for everyone who isn't from the area, Wisconsin is hugely known for two things: beer and cheese. It's just a huge part in the culture, and it's just really, really ingrained. Is that hard for you when you're on prep? Because like I said, like you go everywhere. I mean, there's 2 bars in every town basically, and there's, cheese is just huge, huge, huge. For people who don't know, Wisconsin has some of the biggest alcohol consumption in the country. I think they are still #1. But is that hard for you when you're on prep to sort of not participate in all those events that are just so ingrained in the state, known for basically those 2 things?
Yeah, I think what stinks is like any type of fun thing you do on the weekend or like entertainment with your friends, almost everything involves drinking. Like somehow people in Wisconsin make an event revolved around drinking for everything. But for me, like I've never been big into drinking. Like I kind of went through the college phase, but I don't like beer. I don't really like hard liquor. So for me, if anything, it's like a glass of wine here and there. But definitely the food, like not just cheese, but deep fried cheese curds. That's a Wisconsin thing. So I'm such a foodie and I absolutely love all food. So for me, it's like having to avoid all those snacks and stuff like that, like at events or like football games and things like that.
The hardest for me was the Minnesota State Fair. They have those deep fried Twinkies, and I tried one of those once, and I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing. I went to Freak Fest 2 years because I had a couple of friends that went to school in Madison, and that is just, you know, that like I always said, those stories are for their own separate podcast because that was just the experience in and of itself where I was like, these people in Wisconsin are crazy when it comes to drinking and partying. It's just, it's ridiculous. But how have your friends and family reacted when you started competing or adapting the healthy and fit lifestyle? Were they very supportive?
For the most part, yes. I think it took my mom a little bit longer to adjust. Just she's very like religious and reserved. So like thinking about me in a bikini in front of like a big crowd of people, like I think that kind of freaked her out a little bit. But I was never into sports growing up. I had rheumatoid arthritis, so I was never like the athletic sporty type. So I think them seeing me being able to like compete in something and be able to cheer me on at something, I think that's when they really decided to support it more and were all in for it. So they've been at every show.
Oh, yeah, and it's so great to have that support system because we've had people on here who don't have that so much support thing, but just having that support really helps out these athletes. And I always say, like, even if you aren't, you know, even if they don't know you, if you could just send them sometimes like a message of support. I mean, it's for a lot of them, it means the world to them. And also, I mean, I didn't touch base on it. I totally forgot, but like you did say, you are in a bikini up on stage. Was that a hard thing for you to sort of, you know, build up to knowing that you're gonna have to walk on stage in that? Was that something that you really had to work on mentally, or was it at some point like we had some competitors that come on, they're just like, you know what, I look good, I'm just gonna go and show it off? What was that like for you?
I think it was terrifying, like thinking about it leading up to the first time I did it. But I think after the first time you realize it's not like a sexual thing, like typical up in a bikini. Like I look at someone up on stage and I'm looking at their glutes and hamstrings and like the different muscle parts instead of like a sexualized type thing. Like you're up there to show off your muscle and like a whole package that you've worked for the past however many months. So I think now it's a lot easier for me to get up there than the first time.
And just to put that to rest for any of the guys or girls out there that go to those shows, do not go backstage because all these people that are in their tan, they have not put on deodorant, they have not put on, we've had so many of those stories, you will not like what you find, so this is not the place to go if you want to go and pick up people. No. Do not go to a show because you'll be scarred for life. We've heard so many stories where people were like, I didn't even realize that, first of all, that like you couldn't put on deodorant or anything like that with the tan or the lotion. So I was like, yeah, that must be quite a smell backstage. So everyone out there, that's one of those things where I didn't realize that too. So make sure that you know that. But probably the most important question I could ask is, people don't realize when you are in that stage condition, that stage lean is not a sustainable look. We've had so many people that talk to me who are just like, yeah, those people that you talk to must be just jacked and ripped like 365 days out of the year. No, it's not the case. It's not the case at all. We've had people who start gaining weight literally hours after their show. They've gained like 5 pounds, or they sometimes, you know, it's really hard because your body is like so dieted down that you don't know how it's going to react to those foods, and you are going to have to put on weight. What are some ways that you sort of mentally are able to prepare yourself, knowing for the fact that like, hey, all this hard work that I did, I am going to have to put on weight though because it is not a sustainable look. And just, we've had so many people that get so anxious or they get depressed just knowing that or going through the process. What are some ways that you've sort of used to maybe offset those effects?
I think for me, you know that your body can't function being stage lean all the time. Like I was cold, like I couldn't sit on a chair without my butt hurting like after 2 minutes, like little things like that. And I think you kind of realize like a woman can have curves during the off season. Like you're not meant to be lean and have a six pack and see veins all year round. Like it's just not healthy. It's not healthy for your hormones, just your daily life-to-life function, like having energy to get and being able to go out and do things, like fun things with friends and family. So there's a time and a season for being super lean and being normal body weight that's healthy.
Absolutely, and for all these people that are like, yeah, I get really, really cold doing nothing, I was like, during the winter, you do not want to be in shape, though. You do not, I mean, like I always like to say, we have the saying kind of in the Midwest where you only got to look good 6 months out of the year because the other 6 months you're going to be in a sweater anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So we're getting into that season where I can start to put on maybe like 15 or 10 to 15 pounds, and then cut it off in the springtime, which is really good because, yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, if I were to be like, I could imagine being stage lean when it gets to like negative 10 degrees outside. It's like, yeah, no thanks. That's not something that I really look forward to. But one of the big things, I mean, I've had so many guests from Florida and California, and they do not understand cold. They think it's just some myth. They think that it's some myth that they'll never experience in their life. But what is that like? Because just for me in and of itself, I mean, I'm lucky where at my house I have a gym downstairs that I can work out at a lot of time, but during the winter, what are some ways that you motivate yourself to still be able to go out and get that workout on, even though like most of our bodies are just telling us like, let's just stay inside and watch TV all day when it gets really cold outside. What are some ways that you're able to motivate yourself and say like, no, I need to get this workout in?
Honestly, for me, I don't need that much motivation for like a habit at this point. And just that's like the one thing that I look forward to every single day. Like that's kind of like my me time, like my therapy. So for me going there, it's benefiting me a lot more than if I were to just sit at home. Like I'd probably feel really crappy. And that's like my escape and how I de-stress from work and everything else. So
do you think your background also in accounting has helped you when it comes to all of the nutrition? I mean, you're going to need to know a lot of numbers when you're like counting calories, you're doing all that type of stuff. You think that background has really helped you out when it comes to sort of adapting a good plan?
I think it makes me more like organized, maybe more anal about numbers and sticking to a plan. Like I'm the weirdo that has spreadsheets with like my food and the macros for every day. So like I'm just very like detailed and organized when it comes to that kind of stuff.
And I can say that's probably why you won all those shows, because if you are really detailed and organized, I mean, you're not going to make any mistakes. So it's, I mean, like I always say,
I still like my food.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. She still likes her food, but I mean, just being organized is one of the best things that you can be. And that is, definitely one of those things. But one negative thing that I found out when I started getting big and, putting on a lot of muscle is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. You're going to get, I mean, every time my parents come home, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months. Every time my parents come home with food, I basically have to lift the car into the garage with all the groceries in it. So have you found that be a similar scenario where just because you look the way that you look, or people might see that you work out a lot, they expect you can do favors for them like that?
For me, I'm still pretty small. I feel like being a girl, they automatically don't really ask you. But people just make odd comments. Like the other week, someone came up and hugged me, like grabbed my arm, and they're like, "Oh, like you have muscle." I'm like, "That's weird. Like, don't do that. Don't touch me like that." But like, just people make odd comments and do weird things, like seeing that you're in shape or knowing you compete. I'm not
as muscular as I was in college. Like I've lost a little bit of it, but I still have a lot. But yeah, I cannot tell you how many times like at bars, drunk girls would come up to me just to feel my arm, and they'd literally just be like, "Oh my God, that's so," and I'd be like, okay. I was like, I mean, I was vain, so I was like, okay, you're welcome, yeah. And then it's one of those people just, I mean, it's like, that's why I love having guests on the show that are in health and fitness, because a lot of people, they just see the muscles, they don't see the person behind it. They don't realize that like that person has their own story. They're just a human being. A lot of people just like sometimes, I've had stories where people just all of a sudden think it's like a free for all, where it's like, oh, you can go up and touch them and just it's like a human art exhibit where you're like, oh, let's see what this weird piece of art or let's see what this piece of art like feels. I mean, it's like, come on, people. I mean, I get that 100%, and also me being 6'3" doesn't really help when it comes to like being asked to carry people's stuff, because being that tall, you're gonna get. So I really can't win in that. But one of the things, I mean, I don't know if this has affected you, but probably my favorite question to ask, and before I ask this, everyone, it's a multi-million-dollar idea, so get onto it. When it comes to women who are in shape and have muscles, your clothing options can be limited, because like I always say, like if you have big shoulders, dresses are not going to be your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we've heard where it's almost impossible. Have you experienced that at all? And if so, I mean, knowing that your clothing options can be limited as opposed to someone else, what are some ways that you sort of find to compensate for that?
So I tailor a lot of my own clothes. Like if I get dress pants for work or like jeans, like I have to put tucks in the waist, because you cannot get them to fit. Like I'm 5'7". I feel like they don't make jeans for 5'7" women.
Oh yeah, not even 5'7" jeans. Yeah,
short. Yeah, and then like to fit your thighs and your waist and your glutes, like it's not possible at all. And then I have bigger shoulders too, so like trying to find tops and bottoms that fit, like I definitely put tucks in them, or like always wearing a belt, like little things like that. Yeah,
everyone, that's a multi-million-dollar idea, like I've always said, so get on that. You're going to make a lot of money. But now we go on to our audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where I'm going to ask Cassie about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to everyone else that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I have like an actual song in particular, but Lady LaSure is what I've been listening to a lot lately. I just put her Pandora station on, and I absolutely love all of her music. Like, it's an instant pump up, especially for leg day.
Oh, yeah. For me, I'm old school where I got to have, like, my Metallica or my Iron Maidens on there, but I have a problem where, like I said, like I mentioned, I do work out downstairs a lot, but sometimes I got to go to the gyms. I like to wait for the beat to drop, so sometimes, like, if I'm doing, like, a lat pull down, I'll just be standing there for, like, 20 seconds, and people will be like, what is this guy doing? Like, he's just standing there with the bar down. Oh, I'm waiting for the best part, yeah. So then sometimes, like, and for some songs, it takes, like a minute and a half, so I'll just be literally just like this, and then they'll be like, okay, this guy's weird, and then as soon as it drops, then you got to get it going, but, yeah, so yeah. I've honestly have tried to like just delete the part of the song until it gets to the good part, but it hasn't worked. So it's something where it's like, people, if any of you are listening to this and you see me doing that, I'm just getting ready for the good part. I'm not some weird guy who's just like trying to get like a weird like yoga stretch in with the bar at the thing. Believe me, I've seen some of those guys at the gym. Some of those people have some of the most interesting workouts that will never work, but are just, it's fun to watch them. But now, yeah, it's I watch those YouTube videos religiously. Those are some of the funniest things ever. So now, what out of all the celebrities in the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh gosh, who would be a good one? I could see doing like, I don't know, like someone really like, I don't know, like maybe like an MMA fighter or something like that, like one of those like hardcore girls, so they could just kick my butt.
Yeah. Thank God, because we've had, okay, so you're going to be our 56th health and fitness guest, I think, when this finally gets uploaded, and 50 of them now have said The Rock. So thankfully, this is one of the few times, ladies and gentlemen, where we haven't had The Rock. So yes, thankfully. Yeah. Yes, so we have an MMA fighter. I mean, me personally, I do Arnold just because it's Arnold, and I'd always love to hear him yell at me in his Austrian accent, like, put that weight down, or something like that would be, that would make my life. He'd be definitely the one thing. So now for our third question, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Ooh. I could see doing, like, Paris Hilton or, like, a Kardashian or someone, like, super prissy.
Yes.
Like, I would feel really good about it.
Oh, and plus, I mean, you get them to film that, you're going to make so much money off of that. If you get to film the Kardashians. And plus, yeah, you hear them all those times, like, they talk about, like, oh, okay, so I'm going to get into a quick mini tangent. One of my biggest pet peeves are these celebrities, like, on Instagram that post them. They're, like, curling, like, these 3-pound dumbbells, and they're like, oh, my God, getting ready for my movie role or whatever. And then a month later, they're just, like, insane shape or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you did not do that to get in shape. I mean, you clearly just did that for Instagram, just for likes or whatever. And it promotes this negative image where people think that it is that easy to get in those, to get that results, when it's like, these celebrities are actually doing these insane workouts, they're doing these insane nutrition, and we don't know what else they're doing to get into the roles that make them look that good. So it's like, just be honest with that, and just don't mislead people, which is a huge thing. Like, yeah, those Kardashians, seeing you work them out would be, probably one of the funniest things ever, because I don't think they never knew what hard work was if it ever hit them in the face. So that would be, yeah, so that would be a sight to see. For me, it would be Kevin Hart, but the problem with that would be,
You'd be laughing the whole
time. I know, I was going to say, I would get the best ab workout of all time, but I don't know how much of a workout we'd actually get, because it would be way too funny, for sure. So now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Ooh, sriracha sauce.
Ooh.
Or sugar-free barbecue sauce.
Ooh. That's
I use them every single day. So
I was gonna say, like, we've heard so many, like, one of the big things that I really didn't get was mustard was a huge one that we get all the time, but I didn't realize, because mustard is so low in calories and it's so low in fat, and then bodybuilders just usually put that on like their chicken just to make it taste better. But yeah, low fat barbecue sauce or non-fat barbecue sauce. Yeah, anyone go out there and check it out. I mean, that just sounds, I mean, my mouth is getting watery just talking about that now. So I might have to go and get some ribs or whatever after we're done with this.
So try it out.
Absolutely. What is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
Ooh. I think most people don't know that I do have rheumatoid arthritis, so I compete with that. And then just that I'm actually, like, a very shy person. Like, I think sometimes people see, like, a certain personality on Instagram, or, like, sometimes they have, like, funny or like dorky comments like on some of my captions, but I'm very shy, very reserved. Like that's just how I've been my whole life.
So for anyone in the audience that doesn't really understand, could you explain a little bit what rheumatoid arthritis is and how that affects you?
Yeah, so it's an autoimmune disorder, and it's kind of your body's lining like attacking itself. So it kind of eats away at your cartilage and your joints and stuff like that. So it can be pretty, like, I live with a certain level of pain every day, but with medication and stuff like that, it kind of eases up on that. So it's something it'll never go away. I can just kind of try to treat the pain and work around it. So
that's rough. I mean, we had a lady, I just posted her podcast like a few days ago. She has MS and lupus, and I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked her. Do you think that, always being in a little bit of pain has really helped you when it comes to your workouts? Because when you work out, you're going to be in pain, and it's just all about overcoming that pain to, just get that last rep, to get that last set. Do you think that just having that, background and just always, having at least a certain level of pain, do you think that has actually helped you when it comes to being able to tolerate the pain working out?
In a way, I guess it could kind of help. Just every day you have like a certain level of pain, so you have a higher pain tolerance than most people probably. So I think like you know what it's like to be in pain and kind of have every day be a little bit tough or tired and stuff like that. So I think prep, maybe it does make it a little bit easier, just not as much of an adjustment.
Yeah, it's just so amazing. I mean, hearing that, I didn't know that you had rheumatoid arthritis, so I was like, that's so amazing that you're still able to do what you do. I mean, it's definitely so inspiring. But now, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, I love ice cream. Anything like peanut butter cup, because I'm a huge Reese's fan. So.
Yeah, that's a good one too. But for me, I mean, it's got to be chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard from Dairy Queen. That's just, I mean, you get me one of those, I'm set for the rest of the night. I don't need anything else. I mean, absolutely. And now it is coming up now closely, Thanksgiving. We are vastly approaching it. What is your favorite thing to have at Thanksgiving?
To be completely honest, I'm not a huge Thanksgiving food fan. So like I like turkey and potatoes and stuff, but I'm not a huge fan of them. For me, it's all the sweets that people bake. Like around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, like I could go for a whole plate of sweets instead of the turkey and stuffing and things like that.
We have like these specially made mashed potatoes that are just the best, but for me, the pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is my favorite type of pie. Now that we're finally getting in the season, I mean, I could have a whole pumpkin pie just to myself and not eat anything else at Thanksgiving. But my uncle makes these great. He takes like the leftovers from, he bakes all the pies, but he takes the leftovers from the pies, like the crust, the bread part, and then he puts cinnamon in them and then wraps them up into like little like tortilla-like things that you can eat. So it's basically like cinnamon crunch. Oh, it is the best thing. I cannot wait for that.
Now.
Oh yeah. And those those pumpkin pie blizzards that they have too at Dairy Queen are not too shabby. And I think they're starting to come out for it with them. So I might actually have to check that out tonight, because tonight is time for a cheat meal. So that might actually have to be my thing. Absolutely. So when it does come down, also I like to ask all these competitors, when it comes down to, like Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, all these holidays where you're expected to, be around family who aren't necessarily going to, have your healthy options when it comes to eating. What are some ways that you have sort of compensated, or do you sort of let yourself go for that one day and just say, like, hey, it's a holiday, or do you still like to maintain that healthy nutrition during those days?
Honestly, it depends on where I am with like my competition schedule. If I'm close to a prep or I am prepping, then I stay very strict and I'll just eat my food beforehand, so I'm not hungry and not tempted to overeat or eat the bad food. This time around, I'm in off season, so I'm gonna go and let myself kind of eat whatever I want within moderation. Like I'm not gonna do a full pig out, but I will have a little bit of everything and enjoy what I want. And then the next day you can get back on track. Normal work, normal food, and it honestly probably won't hurt you at all.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's all about, it's like if you can't enjoy yourself every once in a while, then what's the point of even doing it? It's just,
you're not living.
Like, I mean, because we've had so many people where it's like you're gonna be depressed. Like if you have to eat that bland chicken or that bland rice every single day, it's like your body is not meant for eating that same thing every single day. So it's all about providing that variety. But now, the most important question that I could ever ask you in this entire podcast was the last TV show that you binge watched.
Ooh, so my boyfriend and I are doing American Horror Story right now, the cult one. So I think we're about halfway through, so definitely probably finish that in like the next week.
Okay, I've announced this once, but I'm going to announce it again. If you know who Tasia Farmiga is, she's on American Horror Story. I forgot what role she plays. Shoot. I've never seen American Horror Story, but she's the younger. I mean, she's kind of shortish. She's like 20 something. I don't know what role she is, but she's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks. I've been talking to her. She's been in a few movies, and I've been talking to her, and she's going to be coming on to talk about her acting career. So I will definitely send you the link when that happens, because you'll recognize her probably when you see her. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. But yeah, American Horror Story. I've heard a lot of good things about that. For me, the last TV show, you will never guess the last TV show I binge watched, New Girl, and I actually didn't think it was that bad. My brother got me onto it. My brother was like, "Yeah, you would never believe this, but like I actually like this show." And I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, it's actually
funny.
pretty, yeah, it's actually." I was like, "Yeah, it's actually pretty cool." And I have like some of my best friends that are girls or teachers, so literally they're literally just like Jess. I mean, they're like almost caricatures of that. Where I watched it, and I was like, "Holy crap!" It's like I'm watching so and so on this show. So it's ridiculous. But what is your favorite TV show of all time?
That's the easy question. Game of Thrones.
Ooh.
Huge fan of Game of Thrones.
Okay, that brings me into another quick story. So, my brother, being the nicest and greatest person of all time, that's sarcastically, of course, I started watching Game of Thrones after like the 5th season. I had one summer where I just watched, all of it over the summer. And he told me ahead of time, he said, so when an episode with the Red Wedding comes on, make sure to call me down so I can watch your reaction to it. Or he did not say to watch my reaction, but he said, just make sure that I can come down and watch that episode with you. And I was like, oh, okay. Was it like your favorite episode? And he's like, oh yeah, it's my favorite episode. So then when he came down, he secretly planted his camera underneath a pillow so that he could film me watching that episode. And luckily he didn't upload it, but yeah, I was more, like, I was mad. Like, I was ready to throw my remote at the TV because I was like, this is BS. This is, when that episode happened, I was like, this is BS. You don't prepare people for 3 seasons to have that happen to some, But then at the end, I was like, okay, this is why this is one of the greatest shows of all time, because it's able to do,
you can't predict anything.
It's able to do that stuff to him, where I was like, I'm not going to give any spoilers for anyone out there, but in case you're the one person that hasn't seen it, but I'm furious that it's taken him this long for the last season, because we've had to wait 2 years, but now that they're finally going to release it, So before we go on to the next question, what is your prediction? How do you think Game of Thrones is going to end?
Oh my gosh. Daenerys and Jon will definitely end up together, or like
have a
baby,
weird baby,
married, something like that. Like, that has to happen. I do think that like the queen, like what's the evil
Cersei.
queen's name? Yes, Cersei. Mm-hmm. So I actually think she's gonna come through and help them like defeat the White Walkers and everything. I just sound like a total nerd, like name dropping all those things.
Oh no! Okay, believe
you know
me,
what
like
I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no, I am the same way. Yeah, I think personally the White Walkers, like a little part of me wants to see them win in the end and just see what that would be like, just to see everyone become a White Walker at the end. That would be really, really cool. But then also, I'm just gonna, I can't really make a guess, because I want the short guy to win it. If the short guy had took the Iron Throne at the end, I forgot what his name is. But if he were to like become the king at the end, Tyrion, yeah. So if he were to become the king at the end, that would make the event. And it's one of those things too, where like literally anything can happen, because it's not like one of those conventional shows where you're like, oh, they have to win in the end. So it's really, really awesome. So, and I gotta say, my favorite TV show, it's a tie between Friends and The Office. Depending on what day it is, it'll switch between those two. But now, what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Ooh, so my favorite movie of all time is The Gladiator.
Ooh.
I cry almost every time in that movie, but it's also just a great movie in general.
You cry during Gladiator?
Yes.
At what part?
The part where his wife died.
Oh. I was going to say, like, Gladiator, that's like one of those movies where you would never suspect people would be crying during it.
Oh, there is a sad part in there.
Crying at would be like, oh, I miss those gladiatorial times, damn it. It's just... Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, now that I think about it, and did you hear that they're making a sequel to it now?
I did not know that.
It got announced like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they're making a sequel. Russell Crowe's coming back, and yeah, I would definitely look into it. And it looks awesome, and they got the director back and everything. So let's hope that they don't mess that up like they mess up a lot of things. But yeah, Gladiator is definitely just one of those movies where you're just like, just the scale of it, you're just like, holy crap, how'd they make that? For me, my ultimate guilty pleasure movie, any of my guy friends that are listening, plug your ears right now for the next about 20 seconds, but my ultimate date night movie, Princess Bride.
I've never seen that.
What?
I know. I've never seen it.
Here's what you're gonna do. As soon as we're done recording this, you are gonna not watch. You're gonna tape the Packer game, and then you're gonna watch The Princess Bride right now. Okay, no, but like honestly, it is one of those movies where I've seen it so many times I can quote it. I had to write my thesis paper in college, and The Princess Bride came on. I stopped my thesis paper to watch it for 2 hours. That's how dedicated I was. I was like, nope. And my thesis paper was due like that weekend, so I was like, okay. You know what? We're taking a 2-hour break so I can watch The Prince. Yeah, it's just one of those. It's one of those movies where So any of my guy friends, you can listen back on again now. So I'll never admit it in public that I love that movie, but yes, that is definitely one of them. So now, what is one thing that you would change about the sport of bodybuilding if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
Ooh, there's a few things. I think like getting rid of the social media aspect of it. Like I feel like some people compete for social media, or they're always comparing themselves instead of just focusing on like why they want to do it and their own progress, like which is why you should be competing. And they just kind of want like the IG fame and stuff like that instead of the actual passion behind bodybuilding. Hashtag
Instagram famous, stuff like that. I mean that is so ridiculous. I mean I've had so many times where people just do that and they'll compete just once just so that they can say that they're a coach, so then they can start giving out advice to people. I mean I've had even people on that like at the show, and like I had to make every bone in my body to not call them out on that, but I was like, yeah, okay, you're a guest on my show, so I'll be nice. But it's like you do it because you like it. I mean and I've had so many people that do it just because they like it. I mean, it's like they have rarely any Instagram following, or they don't even have an account where it's like, you know what? And Instagram really has. I will give Instagram as credit though, because like I said, probably for a lot of things, Instagram has brought more awareness, and it has probably brought more people to the sport. But it's also a double-edged sword where it's, like you said, so many people just use it just to get famous on Instagram, or some people just use it. I mean, but it's really hard to balance that. And this isn't part of the questionnaire, but I totally forgot to ask it, and that this totally brought it up. But one of the biggest myths that we deal with here is that a lot of people, women especially, still believe this. Like Instagram is another thing that it has made it better over the past like 5 years, but a lot of women still have that belief where if they touch one weight, they're going to gain 50 pounds overnight, turn into Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and just become huge. Did you ever have that fear starting out? And even if you didn't, I mean, I can guarantee you've probably heard women come up to you and say that. What is your response to that?
If it was that easy, like people wouldn't put years and years in this sport just to gain like 5 pounds of muscle. Like especially as natural athletes, like you have to bust your butt every day in the gym, just put on a little bit of muscle. Like the little bit of muscle that I have has taken years already. And I do think I think you can look a certain way on social media too, and in person, if you're not flexing and posing, you don't look that muscular. And like I've had women from like my high school say like, I never want to look like her, or like stuff like that. And like, we don't look that way all the time. Absolutely. That we do on stage. Like we look like average people most of the time, like when we're in normal street clothes. So
and all and another big thing for these people, a lot of these women and the guys too are usually not the tallest people on the planet. So when you meet them in person, you're like, oh, that's not so. Like I've met a few of them just like walking in the street or at the gym that I was at, and most of them are like 5'5" or lower. Where me being 6'3", it's like, oh, I'm not intimidated by you anymore, or whatever. So
tiny, yeah.
I mean, and being 5'7", you're on the very, very. I mean, just society wise, that's very tall for a girl. But being in the bodybuilding or the competing specifically, you're on the upper cusp. I mean, I had the tallest female competitor ever, and she was 6'2", so she was 6'7" in those heels. So I was like, yeah, that's and it turns out she lived like 5 minutes away from me, which was another weird thing where I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where bodybuilding is also a sport kind of illusion too. I mean, like we talked about, you're not going to look that way year round, so it's just it's one of those things where it's really hard to explain to people. But yeah, my story is I had a girl in college that I was really good friends with. When I started working out, she would always be like, hey, I really want to go with you to the gym, but I don't want to get big. I don't want to get huge and bulky. And then finally one night I told her, I said, the amount of weight that your purse carries when you walk around with it to clubs or go everywhere with me weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in the gym, and you're not getting any muscle from lugging that thing around all the time. And then that finally sort of convinced her, and it's all about, just getting into the gym. And once you start, it's really, really, it really busts a lot of myths. So now, me being the hopeless romantic that I am, every one of my guests on here that is in a relationship or is married, I ask them these 2 questions. So how did you and your boyfriend meet?
So I actually knew of him in college. He was on like our college football team. And he's actually also in accounting. So I kind of knew of him through that. And then we got reacquainted the past year through like mutual friends and just kind of hit it off after that.
And where did you guys go for your first date?
We went golfing.
Ooh. Like mini golfing or like real golfing?
No, real golfing.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. I've heard some of these mini golfing stories, which that's a good date, but like real golfing, that's the first time we've actually ever heard that. So, for you and him both, how much of your job is like the Ben Affleck movie, The Accountant?
None of it.
Damn it.
I like to pretend it is, but
I was gonna say, like, I saw that, like, as soon as I heard that movie was gonna be titled that, I was like, okay, this is gonna be the most boring movie ever. But then I watched it, I was like, oh, it's actually pretty. Some people was like, if only more accountants were like that. But yeah, so I love to hear those stories about, you know, all the people in their relationships. It's really great. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
ooh, have more confidence and don't compare yourself to other people.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Especially now that I've gotten into like the whole bodybuilding sport, like your journey is completely different than anyone else's. Your body's completely different. So don't compare your journey compared to someone else's that maybe they're doing it for 10 plus years or different genetics, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it would definitely be, you know, you're not going to be able to please everyone, because I was a huge people pleaser back then. We're just realizing, you know, like some people are just not going to get it, where it's just, you don't have to worry about everyone liking you, because it's going to be impossible. But now, if you had never got into bodybuilding or never adapted that healthy and fit lifestyle, how different do you think your life would be? Where do you think you'd be at right now in your life?
I don't know. Like, it's such a big part of my life now. Like, I couldn't really picture not being in it. And even if I one day don't compete, like I won't do that forever. I think working out and eating healthy will always be a part of my life, and taking care of myself in that way, my life would probably be a lot more boring without it.
Oh, yeah. And when it comes to your family, have you tried at all to sort of get them to adapt a more healthy and fit lifestyle? And if you have, how has that worked out?
It hasn't worked very well because we're from Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's true.
I have kind of tried to like push them into working out, or like maybe eating a little bit healthier, like tips and tricks here and there, like maybe don't drink as much, or like cut out soda, like little things. Like, cause if you're just an average person, like you don't want to go to that extreme. You can make little adjustments that kind of help you in the long run.
I gotta ask, what is this soda that you talk of? We only talk in the Midwest of a thing called pop. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's another Midwestern thing. So now, other than social media or other than Instagram, if anyone ever had like any advice for you or was ever willing to ask you any questions, is there any other ways to get a hold of you other than your Instagram, or is that the main thing that you like people use?
I typically have people like contact me on Instagram, like through the messaging. I'm pretty good at responding through that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave, like I said, everyone, I'll leave her links down below and everything. Is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Probably just my coach, Dave Myers. He's out of the Minneapolis area.
Oh, yeah.
And just all of my teammates. So they're all ramping up for Miami next weekend.
Oh, yep, that's right, Miami. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I've had a few people that are competing in that going on. So, and also, what are your current plans? How long until you go into your next show? What is the time frame looking like?
Yeah, so this is kind of my first like real off season, so I'm kind of enjoying it for a while. I think the earliest I would compete, I'd maybe start prepping like February to try to do some early summer pro shows. But
after Valentine's Day, though.
Yes, hopefully.
You got to enjoy your chocolate on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Yeah, so absolutely. And everyone, I mean, go and give her a follow. Like I always say, you'll be inspired to lose or to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies. And again, like, we cannot thank you so much. And again, just having that rheumatoid arthritis was something, like I said before, I never knew. And it's just so inspiring to hear stories of people who are just still maintaining that healthy and fit lifestyle, even though they might have stuff like that. And it's just so inspiring, and keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it's so inspirational. And again, you guys, Cassie, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I'll leave all of her links down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.